classic one I've seen is someone says that they'll support you. The email doesn't go out. They then discover their VA was on vacation and they don't have any access to the system. Their VA does, so they don't know what to do. It's those sort of silly things. And it's not just small organizations that happens. That's, large organizations where there's just a complete
Yeah.
breakdown of communication.
Yeah.
Um,
I've heard so many horror stories about entrepreneurs who like hand off keys of the kingdom to a VA who like just like goes off the rails and just gone. And then the entrepreneur is like, I don't know how to do any of this. Hey, YouTube crew. This week I have a super special video for you. We're spilling all the tea. If we're calling this tea time, we're spilling all the tea on joint venture partnerships and collaborations between entrepreneurs. I have a really great friend I've known for years in the business space. His name's Danny Bermant. He's across the pond in England, and he and I have built our businesses and done some like collaborations together over time. We're doing some bigger collaborations together this year, starting with having this conversation here on this YouTube channel. I hope you pay attention to this so that you can make sure that you are setting up partnerships and relationships that feel fair and equal, and that you're showing up big and bright for the people that you also want to work with, and that you're also getting people coming in working with you who are able to pull their weight and operate equally in that energetic exchange. So with that, tune in for this video. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, click that thumbs up for the like so we can keep the content going on this channel, and I'll see you on the other side. We have been friends and collaborators in the business space for quite some time. And you and I were chatting recently because you are a joint venture expert. And I thought, you know what? I think it would be really awesome to have you come in here so that we can post a conversation, demonstrate for everybody what it sounds like when collaborators actually talk to each other, to bring in that human element, which is something I've been talking about a lot lately with my audience. And then we can also talk about ways that people can prepare to do better collaborations this year and beyond. So before we get started in the conversation, do you just want to take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody?
sure, sure. So I'm the CEO of Captain JV. What we do is we help coaches and consultants to attract their ideal clients through joint venture partnerships.
I love it. Okay, so I want to take everything back, like a really big step back. So when we are collaborating with other people, you and I were having a conversation about the need to help people learn to reduce that transactional quality and have it be more of like an actual collaboration. So like if somebody's brand new to this, or maybe they've tried it, and let's say that they've struggled to have really successful collaborations. What do you think are
So,
some of the things you hear the most from people?
so I think that with collaborations, where people struggle, what they really find is that there is very much a "you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours" mentality. The way people look at it is, I'm giving you this amount. What are you giving me back in return?
Yeah.
And a joint venture just really, really does not work in that with that kind of mindset. It's very much a case of it's looking at it like an investment. When you're investing in somebody, there's somebody you meet, you like their business, you believe in what they're doing, you say I want to support you, and you do that with the understanding that that person will at some point be able to support you back. But ultimately, what's motivating you is that you actually like what they do, you want to work with them, and there's like a mutual. There's basically a mutual attraction, mutual understanding. There's a synergy between both your businesses, and that is ultimately the motivation between you working together, right? If it's simply what can I get out of you? What can you get out of me? It's never going to go very far. It might be a one-off. You might do a one-off promotion, a one-off launch together, but that's as far as it's going to go.
Right. That like quid pro quo, like it has to show up in the moment, back and forth, is just not actual collaboration. Like it's not, well, it doesn't happen in our regular like friendships either, or relationships outside of business. Like we don't do nice things for our friends and then immediately expect them to do something nice for us in that moment.
I actually remember being at school in the days when everyone had video games that you had to load a video game using a cassette or a disc. And I
Yes.
remember I had friendships that were purely based on computer games. Like, what computer games have you got? What can we swap? What can I give you? What can we swap? And like, if you took the computer games away, we'd have like nothing to talk about. You know,
Yeah.
there was no real friendship. And it's a little bit like that with JVs as well sometimes.
Yeah, some of the best collaborations I've seen, I love watching people, I love doing market research and watching people grow together through the space. And you can totally tell when little pods of entrepreneurs have truly helped each other over time because their audiences, it's almost a symbiotic relationship. Like they just grow together. Um, I'm wondering, like, what kind of advice would you give somebody if they find that like they're listening to this right now and they're going, "Oh my goodness, like I do this." So we're posting this on YouTube and people will be at home in the privacy of their homes and they can be like, "Oh, have that cringe moment." But like if somebody realizes like, "Oh crap, like I just, come into these with these expectations of like a transaction, and of course I'm not getting anything back. Who wants to deal with just a transaction?" What's something that somebody can like start practicing doing now so that they can improve that and maybe get like more return on collaborations? Like should they try and take the lead and be the person who leads a collaboration for once so they can understand like the opposite role? Like do you think that's valuable, or is that like too much to chew?
I think you do need to go into it with a mindset of what I call offering value in advance. Right. When you are meeting with somebody for the first time and you reach out to someone, the first thing that someone is thinking of is what's in it for me. You know, the very first time someone reaches out to me, connects on LinkedIn, I'm thinking, why do they want to connect to me? Now, if someone connects to your LinkedIn and says, for example, I noticed you're a leader in your industry. I'd love to have you on my podcast, or I'm writing an article about this topic. Could I quote you on something? You're immediately saying, listen, I value you. I think that you've got something to give. I'd like to support you. The moment you do that, people perk up. They take an interest. They're curious about you, what you do. So it's understanding actually. If you want people to pay attention to you, best way to do that is to take an interest in other people. No one is interested in people who talk about themselves all the time. It's just, I once said, I once, I ran a training course on social media, and I used to say to delegates that, listen, you need to understand, right, your customers are just not that into you. Right. I don't mean it as an insult, but ultimately they're into themselves, and what they're thinking is, what can you do to help them? What can you help to alleviate their situation? If you do that, then they're really interested in you, and
Yeah.
it's something you have to take into the joint venture as well.
Oh, I love that because I've been talking lately about how I just posted a video about how if you want to be a better entrepreneur, you need to be a better consumer. Kind of like how
Mm.
Stephen King talks about for writers. Like if you want to be a better writer, you have to be a better reader. And I
Yeah.
think if you want to be a better partner, better collaborator, like you've got to be more interested in other people than just trying to like perfect your pitch or something.
Yeah.
I don't know that that is really going to help. I mean, like you have a program that you're developing right now after all the years of helping other people build their JV programs and their businesses. And so you're going to end up helping other people get prepared for things like that, like get your bio in order, get your headshot in order, like be prepared to like actually promote what somebody else is doing so that you guys can actually have like a successful collaboration and earn things like affiliate income and whatnot. I find that usually, money is the driving factor on a lot of things, as it should be, because without money, it's not really business. But like, if somebody's so focused on like, what am I going to get paid out of this? Like, at what point should we be concerned with that figure? Are there other things that we should be more concerned with that are like more important when it comes to like the longevity of a really good collab?
Yeah. Well, firstly, that on the money side, there is a lot of joint venture partners will be paying commission.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is that immediate benefit you get. You support somebody. If your support converts into a sale, you're getting you're earning commission. But I think you realistically, it can sometimes take 6 months to a year. It depends. It can be sooner, but it can sometimes take 6 months to a year for that payoff to come.
Yeah.
But I think you have to compare that to lots of other forms of marketing, right? If you carry out an SEO campaign, right, how long does it take for that to translate into concrete results that lead to inquiries? And even when you do get inquiries from SEO, if you get inquiries from social media, these are people who have come cold. They're not recommended by anybody, so they land on your site. You get an inquiry. Very often, those people are not cold. Sorry, they're not warm yet. They need to
Yeah.
be nurtured. It might take another 6 months, a year, or longer to they convert. So
Okay.
the reality is that marketing, when you are, when you are warming up a relationship, whether it's with a joint venture partner, whether it's with someone who lands on your email list, the benefit doesn't always come straight away. In the same way that if someone comes on your email list, you have to nurture them. You have to. There's like a courtship, if you like. There's a process of
Yeah.
really, really of them getting to know you, getting to know your topic, getting to know your what you teach, and getting to know you like you trust you till they're ready to put their hand up and say, I'd like to inquire about working with you. It's exactly the same with a joint venture. It also takes time to build that relationship up. I've had situations where I've had to email somebody about 4 or 5 times till they finally respond and say, yeah, yeah, let's have a chat. But you've got to be there for the long term.
Yeah. I find too that like really good people who are worth collaborating are also very busy. Um, like I've got a series of coffee chats even for the second half of the year. And it's so funny how many of us we've been swapping emails and everyone's like, I'm booked through the end of July.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, me too. Me too. Like we're actually actively doing things. It's not, somebody's ignoring someone else or that, they, won't end up being like a helpful partner in some way. Um, I'm thinking that for people who, are anxious to like really get going with things, to understand the lead time it requires to get ready to do promotions really well, just for your own list, your own area. Like what are some of like the major things that somebody really needs to build up before they can, successfully promote something to their audience?
Sure. Well, promoting to your audience, if your offer, for example, and your audience, if your offer is still evolving, there's nothing to stop you from promoting other partners. So you may have an audience you may already have an audience, but you might sort of be thinking, well, my offer's not refined yet. I don't really have a launch coming up for a few months still. I don't really, so I'm not ready to JV. And I think that's a big mistake because
Mm,
if you have an audience, provided you are already communicating with them, right? So maybe they're hearing from you 2, 3 times a week. What's to stop you from, in the meantime, supporting other partners
right.
who've got programs taking place because you are all the time building up goodwill. So when your program is ready, then they are ready to promote you. So
Yeah.
in terms of like when is the best time to get started, I think if you have an audience, even if your offer isn't ready, it's time to start building relationships now.
Yeah, I think it really underscores like the systems person in me thinks about people who are like kind of touch and go, not very consistent. Sometimes they talk to their audience, sometimes they don't. I think like it's a really good time to use JVs as a way to help give you some motivation to like regularly start talking to your audience and training your audience to hear from you, that you do collaborate with other people, that you're going to share other things with them. Um, I think one of the things that, and I'll be curious to hear your take on this. One of the things that I regularly end up having conversations with coaching clients on is they're really afraid to have something like be for sale all the time. And, my thing is like, I've been sending a weekly newsletter now for years, and there is always something for sale every single week in that newsletter. And the list keeps growing. Like there are people who trickle off the list every now and then, but it keeps growing. And um how does somebody handle, getting into the world of collaborations and JV partnerships, whether the offer is a paid one or even if it's not, like a CTA or an offer is a CTA or an offer, like there's something transactional happening there.
Hmm.
So how do we help people realize that like you kind of can't over over offer to your audience in a way. Like they are empowered to pick and choose what they want if we position it in a way for them to be empowered for that. Like we don't want to shove things down their throats at the same time. So like how do you develop that balance?
I think the first thing is you have to kind of get a good idea of what the right rhythm is for your audience. I've worked with joint venture partners who they do promote regularly, but what they might do is they might go do 1 or 2 partnerships a month. They might promote instead of if they're supporting a launch, rather than support the whole launch, they'll ask what is the most what's going to be the most relevant part of a launch that my audience benefit from, and then they'll send one email, and then I'll send another to unopened. So
Right.
uh, support can take a whole range of options. You don't have to be all in where you're promoting things every other day. You could be, promoting something a couple of times a month. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is if you are promoting, prepare your list. So, for example, you might be promoting somebody who is an expert in neuroscience, right? It might be in neuroscience coaching and promoting. So what you might do is first send an email or a couple of emails about neuroscience. What is it? Why should you be thinking about it? And then your second or third email is, and listen, I'd like to tell you about, for example, Irene O'Brien, who's an expert in this area, and she's running a workshop on. So you kind of built up to it, so it doesn't feel like you're spring this surprise, like, hi guys, here's a promotion. So it's all about really how you frame it.
Yeah.
It's like sales. What is sales misunderstood as? It's often seen as this kind of seedy
Mhm.
salesperson pitching something at you, trying to force you to sign a dotted line. But if we've ever been with a salesperson who is really good at what they do, you don't actually feel sold to. You feel like
Yeah.
someone who, and I've seen it myself, where someone is basically just asking you really, really, you know, really relevant questions about your situation.
Yeah.
They're diagnosing they're diagnosing the problem you've got really well, which is making you naturally feel, well, this person actually seems to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they don't force themselves on you. They say, well, is this something you'd like help with? And then
Yeah.
so they're opening their, they're opening up to you. They give you the option to put your hand up. It's exactly the same thing with how you pitch a promotion. So you use terminology that pitches it more of a, do you suffer from this problem? I have for a number of years followed this person, and I think that you'll find their trainer live training or their checklist or whatever it is they've got really helpful
Yeah.
for what you're grappling with. So it's just really just about the terminology you use, and that opens another question, which is how to what extent do you invest in the partner that you're working with? So most joint venture partners that you work with, they'll give you a copy that they've written to help you promote what they do. Now you can just take that copy as it is and just use it,
Yeah.
and you have the danger of possibly that someone else is using exactly the same copy as well, and your stuff is just going to read like everyone else's. Or you can take the time to actually customize it and say, listen, to just talk from a personal point of view, that the person's methodology is something that you've used or you've experienced working with them, and this is why you think they'd be a really valuable person to listen to. So you can personalize it. It's down to also the investment you're making in that promotion, and how much bandwidth do you have to do that. So if you don't have the bandwidth to do a lot of personalization, so just promote a little less frequently, so when you do work with somebody, you can invest into customizing your property.
I love that point about customizing it because it's also making me think like at what point do you recognize if you're maybe in like a bad collaboration and you're like this is not really working either like they if the partner is supposed to give you at least something and you don't have anything really to work with like how do you handle that um and then conversely, it'd be nice to also look at, I know a lot of the folks in both of our audiences have businesses and they offer things. And like when you are the one offering the collaboration, like what are the things you really need to prepare for other people too, so that you are also a good collaborator and it helps other people do their job a little bit easier. Um, like what how can you recognize when something's like going off the rails basically and can be course correct at any point?
Yeah, well, the big red flag in my experience is people who just aren't responsive. You say to people, "When am I getting my copy?" Or "Can you tell you're on board for a launch?" Or "You're supporting my launch. What dates can you support us?" Which is a really polite question to ask, because what you're actually trying to do is to help them. If I know that you're promoting me on the 4th of July, and I don't see any leads come through, then I can actually get back to you and say, actually, there might be something wrong with the tracking. Can you just check you use the right link or something like that? So, we'll above all, communicate. And if someone doesn't communicate, you need to fairly quickly follow up with them. Send a message like, just bring this to the top of your inbox. And if they still aren't responding, I think you need to be a little bit more forthright and say to them, listen, you kind of in brackets in the subject line, action required. Can you come back to me today? Because, and you actually need to actually say, listen, we're going to have to pull the plug if I don't hear back from you at least a week before.
Yeah.
Because it's just common courtesy. You can't do, if you're promoting somebody else, you can't do them justice if you only have a couple of days to customize copy, get it
Right.
signed off, and so on.
Yeah.
Sadly, some of the partners who let you down, they're not bad people. They're not necessarily people who lack integrity,
Yeah.
but you'll relate to this. They don't have processes, so everything is they fly by the seat of their pants. They have no idea how they function, but there are no processes in place, and so things just fall between the cracks. I've seen a classic one. I've seen is someone says that they'll support you. The email doesn't go out. They then discover their VA was on vacation, and they don't have any access to the system. Their VA does, so they don't know what to do. It's those sort of silly things, and it's not just small organizations that happens. That's large organizations where there's just a complete
Yeah.
breakdown of communication.
Yeah.
Um,
I've heard so many horror stories about entrepreneurs who like hand off keys of the kingdom to a VA who like just like goes off the rails and just gone. And then the entrepreneur is like, I don't know how to do any of this. Yeah, I think I mean everything's a learning lesson, right?
yeah,
Like if you end up in a you end up in a real pickle jar. Eventually you'll learn like don't do that again, or course correct for the future. Um, I just think like an interesting discussion I've been having with other people that you and I both know, other entrepreneurs in our space. One of us, we were having a conversation yesterday over WhatsApp notes, and we were both saying that there's sort of this like crippling perfectionism that happens with a lot of people that's stopping them from like actually just doing really honestly great work that's already like inherently there, and they're just like stopping themselves short. um I've seen this show up in my audience. I used to think it was because they were, very empathic people. You got a lot of the woo-woo metaphysical, they feel a lot of things. And but I think it's kind of along the lines of this like perfectionism thing where it's like, but what if I screw up? What if I don't get any result? What if I'm disappointed by it? And so they're just like, nope, I'm just not going to do any collaborations. I'm just not going to do it at all. I'm just going to pretend like I don't need it. Or I'm going to pretend like that doesn't work for me. Um, I know you and I kicked off this whole discussion because we were both like, there is a shift going on in the business world right now. Like we are hitting an age where like you need to collaborate. And you need to find who your good collaborative partners are and learn how to grow with them. Um, like what would you tell other people? Like what are you also seeing out in the business landscape that makes collaborations so important right now because of the way just business and sales are, changing?
yeah, I think firstly the advertising online has become increasingly difficult.
Yeah.
I remember LinkedIn ads being about $5 to $7 a click, and now with Facebook ads, it's not that unusual to be paying $3 to $4 for a click.
Mhm.
So firstly, it's very difficult to run profitable campaigns that way.
Yeah.
The second thing is that people are, I think, increasingly frustrated when they do get leads from social media, paid social, or SEO. It's cold, right? They're people who
Mhm.
are, not serious, or they're not ready, and it can take a year or longer sometimes for them to be ready. So people are looking for other ways to to get to connect with their market, and I think this also I think falls into the fact that there are a lot of people who I would describe as heart-centered entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs who believe in conscious capitalism, where they believe that business is not about trying to make a quick buck. It's not about trying to force people to buy things they don't want. You're actually running a business that's motivated by making meaningful change in the world.
Yeah.
So it also means that there is a whole movement of people now who actually want to do business in a way that is much more aligned with their way of looking at the world. And working with a partner fits in much more with that. They don't necessarily feel comfortable going out there and selling to people. They don't feel comfortable with like CD marketing techniques. But if they have a business that's aligned with theirs, and is telling their audience, listen, your partner's saying, I know this person, I've worked with them, I think that their program is going to help you.
Yeah.
It's a very different proposition.
It is so different. I love that you brought up the conscious capitalism part because I think you and I both serve um, pretty similar audiences and just sort of like their psychographics, especially. And I think so many of them, like they have been around like the old sales systems, the pressure tactics, and it's just like, ew, yuck. Like, no. And and like collaborations give us a chance to really practice talking about what we offer and how we offer it and like really display our values. But it requires that each of us like hold space for each other in order to do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's a very different, the whole narrative, right, in a collaborative space is it's a very different,
Yeah.
it operates in a very different way. Um, but what happens is there is a kind of reverse psychology that people are a lot more keen, that people are far more keen to buy as a
Yeah.
result. You know,
Yeah.
I think of one person I think of is Tad Hargrave. You know, he's got
Yeah. I
this
love
business
them.
called, Marketing for Hippies. So his audience are really, I would describe them as allergic, to kind of
Yeah.
CD marketing. You know, people, they feel dirty around, traditional kind of marketing and sales. One of the things that Tad does when he is collaborating with partners, he actually gives two types of link that you can click on. You can click on the link that's an affiliate link, and you can also click on the non-affiliate link. So, if you don't, because you might feel uncomfortable that, oh, this person's making money out of me. But what happens is Taz says that actually most people click on the affiliate link because the fact that he
Mm.
gives them two options, that transparency and openness makes them feel even more comfortable about, you know what, you're very open about this. I want to help you. And they click on the affiliate link.
I love that because it's almost like by introducing that you have free will and choice, it invites people through the door with more comfort. Um, yeah, I think that's really interesting. I do a thing where, and this I just was like a holdover from my blogging days, but I have a footer and everything that says like there might be affiliate links anywhere and everywhere in here, and I just tell you it. Pretty standard stuff. This is how it works, but like that way you can make your purchasing decisions as you see fit. So if you see an affiliate link to like a book that I'm recommending and it goes to Amazon, but like it's my affiliate link, you can choose to go to your local bookstore and go buy it. If I'm, telling you about a tarot deck, you can go to your local indie metaphysical bookstore and go find that deck.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy it through this link. Like there are other options. And um, I find that also helps model for other people that there's more than one way to tell people about things, but I love what Tad is doing with like here's two links. One is affiliate and one is not. I think that's great.
Yeah, and his audience. When the thing is, what's interesting is when he makes a recommendation, his audience buy
Yeah.
because because there's just so much more sincerity.
Right.
He's not constantly pushing offers left, right, and center. He's
Right.
actually saying to his audience, "This is someone who actually invested the time to get to know. I've spoken to their customers. I've looked at their system, and I believe in it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an asset. He's even actually sometimes promoted things where this person's style of delivery is slightly different to what his audience are used to. But he
Right.
actually he takes that on. He actually says this person's style of delivery wouldn't be my style of delivery, but forget about that. They're
Right.
really genuine. I think their format, their program is ideal.
Okay, so here's an interesting question. So Tad is such an interesting person to follow. He's great. He has like a large following now at this point. Like he's really grown his list and his followers. How does somebody who's not Tad, so they have the
Yeah,
same values as Tad,
yeah,
but they're not Tad. They don't have that huge list.
yeah.
They haven't been building that engagement all that time. How does somebody start from that point? Because I think a lot of times we see the examples of people like Tad, and then we're like, oh, like I can see how the formula is supposed to work. Like I can see how collaborations are supposed to work. But when you're starting, you don't have all the same ingredients in the kitchen. So what do you do?
You still employ the same you still employ the same principles as Tad. Firstly, there are businesses that are going to be very much aligned with yours. So Tad only works with businesses that he feels are complementary to his. You're doing you need to do the same thing. It's just that you're starting on a different level to him. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's got a much larger audience. But the principles remain the same. You only work with people you believe in, not just because there's a great commission. You think you think there's money to be made. You do due diligence that if you see someone who you think's fit for your audience, don't just leave it at that. When I meet a partner, I say to them, listen, can you send me your swipe copy? Can you when's your next webinar coming up? Maybe I can sit on it for a few minutes. Really kind of spend a bit of time investigating. You owe it to your audience to actually do that.
Yeah.
And then it's customizing your copy. Just invest yourself in the partner you're working with. Whether it's customizing your copy, investigating what they do, having a get to know you call that lasts more than 20 minutes. I've had I have lots of people who invite me to a get to know you call. It's like a 15-minute slot.
What
You
is
need four,
that?
you actually need three-quarters of an hour to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
You need to ask them questions like what is your audience? What are your audience struggling with? Like, tell me when one of your customers comes to you, just tell me what sort of things they say when they come to you.
Yeah.
If I was to interview one of your customers in 6 months' time after they started working with you, what would they tell me? It's that level of interest you need to take in a partner, and for you to both interrogate. Well, I don't know, I don't like using the word interrogate, but to really get to the nuts and bolts of what you both do,
Yeah.
you need three-quarters of an hour together.
I
And
so agree. Yeah.
most times people don't spend that time. Most of the calls I've had with joint venture partners, I very rarely get the same level of questioning back. I spend about 25 minutes asking them lots of
Yeah.
questions. And they go, yeah, I asked the question, that's a great question. That's a great question. And then I get back, it's just a really quick kind of, what's your product? What's your audience? Bum, 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 bum. What can we do together? Like,
It's so
slow down a bit.
transactional. Like there's the
Yeah.
transactional part. I think it's so
Slow
important.
down, slow down,
Slow down. I know. Yes. Oh my God. Well, I mean, I've been working on this whole thing where I'm shifting into like helping people with analogous thinking. And, I love my movies and TV shows and stuff.
Mm.
And I just feel like there's something about water cooler chat. Like there's sort of this aversion to like, well, I don't want to have to do water cooler chat or small talk. And I'm like, there's a difference between small talk and then there's a difference between like having human interaction, and you need time to like understand who this person is and what lights them up and when do they get excited. And because when we talk about the things that make us happy to be a human in this world, it tells you a lot about how they're going to talk about your offer or their offer in their audience, because there's like a voice and a tone and an energy to it. And I'm so with you. These like super short little 15-minute
I don't do
chats.
small talk, by the way.
I
I
know.
don't
I'm
do
like,
small talk.
ugh,
It doesn't mean I don't. What I do instead of small talk is like if I'm going to meet somebody, I actually like research them first. So when I start a
yeah,
conversation with them, I'll say like, I saw you speak on YouTube about X, Y, whatever it is, and
yeah,
how did you do that? Like, so I actually do take an interest in them and ask something, but I don't do small talk because it's fake and
yeah,
people know it's fake.
yeah,
I remember, I'll give you a little anecdote. Years and years ago, I was a member of a BNI chapter.
yeah.
There's some great BNI chapters. There's some not so great BNI chapters. The chapter I was a member of, I invited a friend to a visitors day.
Uh-huh.
He was a graphic designer, and after the visitors day was over, he said, "Did you know that like they all wanted me to join the chapter? Not a single person asked to look at my portfolio, not one." And I thought that's really telling.
Mm,
And that's pretty much what happens with JVs.
yeah. That's why I've never joined a BNI chapter. I've been invited to so many, and like they're just, there aren't a lot of me's out there. So they're like, come on into
Right.
the group, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but you don't really know, you didn't really get to know me.
Yeah.
And like that sort of who do you serve, what do you offer statement just isn't enough to that's so transactional. I love that this came up in our conversation. I think, you made a really interesting point, like about researching somebody before you talk to them. It's funny because when he said that, I instantly thought, like, oh, like I kind of just sort of thought that goes without saying, but I think like it has to be said, like you need to be curious about other people and like actually go like subscribe to their newsletters and read them for a couple of weeks and like look at their social media profile, watch their talk that's posted wherever. But what happens when like somebody, hasn't done a lot of that? There's a term called like, participating in the same weight class with, other people. Usually it determines like list size or like the revenue size of your business. But if you're like a smaller weight class and you don't have a huge public body of work behind you, like, is that a sign that, it's time to start working on building that for yourself so people can learn more about you and get to know you more easily? Or like, how do you
So,
handle that?
so when you talk about weight class, are you referring to your list size, your audience size?
Yeah, I think like audience size, but I'm also thinking like when I think of weight class, I think of things like audience size. I think of how much visibility somebody's had in the world. Like some people are so private in their business activities that like you can hardly find much about them online. They
Yeah.
don't accept interviews, they don't publish a lot of information. Maybe they've been inconsistent in just like sharing things, or the material that is out there is like super like generic, like
Mm.
safe, like emotionally safe, like lots of stock images and stuff like that. Like it's really hard to find their picture even. um like how is that a sign that somebody's not ready for really good collaborations? Or like what's your take on that?
No, I think some people are very good at self-promotion. Other people are not that. Other
Yeah.
people are not that great. So I think I wouldn't necessarily read anything into that. Um, I mean, in terms of weight class, what I found quite telling is I've seen a lot of businesses of varying sizes work together.
Yeah.
I've seen businesses that are very slick and collaborate with those who are, a lot smaller, a lot less slick. They don't necessarily have a lot of the infrastructure that a large company would have in place, but they
Right.
all work together because they both see that there is synergy between the audiences, and that is often much more valuable. Like we have audiences that both are aligned with each other, that both will really like what the other has to offer.
Yeah.
And that's much more important. I've actually in the past sometimes really if we talk about weight class, there's some people who I just don't want to collaborate with because you reach out to speak to them and like you get put through to their VA and their VA will see. I found out when such and such has got free space in their diary, or you have to send an inquiry to. You want to have someone on a podcast, you had to
Mhm.
send an inquiry to their PR company. And actually, there was one person I invited on the podcast where I had such a long list of questions to answer. I just said, forget it.
Yeah.
This is not an interview process. You're welcome to come on the podcast. If you don't want to come, you don't have to come.
Yeah.
I've got lots of other guests who want to come.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
I'm with you on that. I think there's a thing people do this on the system side of things. I see people trying to protect their energy or their time, and I don't think they realize that they're repelling a lot of good stuff that could come into them, whether it's like they're trying to do the 15-minute meeting slot that's really not helping them really develop relationships, or they're putting VAs in front of like their calendar that's making it so hard to book appointments. There are some people I have like distance chatting with because they have a VA in front of their calendar, and it's like I'll give them a link to my calendar and I'm like, just book on the calendar.
yeah.
And like the VA has to like ask me what this and that, and I just wanted to whatever, and I'm like, forget it, either take
The
it or leave it.
coordination just goes backwards and forwards. Exactly. It puts you off, and that is actually one of the questions you need to ask when you decide whether to JV with somebody is, do I actually like working with this person?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think those like systems things, those base logistics show you a lot about what somebody will be like in the future. I think one of the things that like I've rubbed up against in the past year, and I'm curious to see what your opinion on this would be, is I'll try to create some kind of like situation for people to collaborate together in a space. Um, and I find that like I'm holding people's hands a lot. Like they need help reviewing their bio, they need help just figuring out real basic things. And I don't mind helping to a certain extent, but when you're also running production and getting everything ready for them to be able to participate in the space for you, um, like, do you think how do you vet people better, basically? Like, is it smart to do like sort of baby collaborations just to see how it works before you do something bigger? Do you have any like questions that kind of like help you predetermine better if somebody's ready to do like the collaboration?
Yeah, you can ask some basic questions that test really the water, which is, for example, ask them, are you involved in collaborations at the moment, and
Yeah,
how often do you collaborate? Who do you collaborate with? How often do you email your list?
yeah,
So those tell you some things. You can also say to them about when you decide to work together. You can tell them about the process you follow. Like
right,
usually, if we're promoting someone, we usually would expect copy by this and this date. Do
right,
you think that's something you could realistically do?
right.
I think it's always good when you're working with somebody the first time. Don't lock in lots of things. Just start off with correct. If you're, for example, running a number of events, just explore initially what you can do together, just to start off with, to test the water.
Yeah,
Think of it as a little bit of a pilot. First time you work with somebody, see how that works,
yeah,
then decide what to do next. I've had several situations where I've worked with a partner. The first time that they worked with us, they flaked out on us.
yeah,
So it's a case of just trying to work out what went wrong. What can we do differently next time?
yeah,
Sometimes there's a good reason for it. Like
yeah,
the classic one is that the systems break down. So the email never goes out, the VA's on vacation, and so on.
yeah, yeah.
So try again. But yeah, it's good to just do things one promotion at a time.
I like the idea of like little pilot collaborations.
Hmm.
I think there's something helpful there. Thank you for that.
No, no, no. It's
Yeah.
it's it's really important. It's really
Speaking
important.
speaking of pilots, I'm just gonna like slide in the segue here, but you're developing a program. I want to make sure that people on my list know you and I collaborate, and I'll be sharing that over in my world, only because like in the space of business, I know, like, and trust you an awful lot, and I see how much people struggle with JVs and collaborations, and and then lo and behold, you started developing a program to help people get ready to do it better. So you have a pilot group running. When we post this video, you're enrolling for the pilot, and then you'll have regular ongoing groups after that. But I'm just going to make sure everyone who's watching the video knows we're going to drop that info in the show notes, how to get in touch to get on that. And I'll keep those links updated in the show notes in the future as you update them too.
Fantastic.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks.
Before we wrap up, do you have any like last words of wisdom for people who are listening to us or have stuck with us through, the last like what, 40 minutes or so? Like what, what can somebody do like this week to start preparing better for a joint venture partnership?
First thing to think about is do I have do I have an audience? You may, for example, not have an audience on email, but you may have an active audience on social media.
Right.
Are you communicating with that audience? Are they ever hearing from you? As we discussed earlier, if you suddenly stop promoting somebody, it's going to be a bit of a surprise.
Mm.
But if they're used to regularly seeing posts from you, talking about certain topics, it's going to be much more in part of the flow when they start hearing from you about other partners. That's the first thing.
Cool.
And the second thing to do is start exploring. Right, if for example you have a audience but your offer is still being developed, don't use that as an excuse to say, well, I can't start joint venture partnerships. I need to get my offer right. It could take another 6 months. No, the time to start is right now.
Yeah.
Time to start right now start thinking about where are the places you can go to meet. First, it's being very clear who are my people, who are
Yeah.
my audience, what are they struggling with, and then where can I go and meet other people with
Yeah.
similar other businesses that are complementary to mine, where I can where I can that I can meet and collaborate with,
Yeah.
and start off just by just having those conversations with people, getting to know them, investing in those conversations.
Yeah.
Um,
For more than
and
15 minutes.
exactly more than 15 minutes. Yeah. It's the irony is with joint ventures, right? You are investing time in getting to know people. You are investing a bit of time in having processes in place.
Yeah.
But actually, in the long run, it is far quicker than other forms of marketing because,
Yeah.
as I said earlier, right, with advertising and with other sources of cold traffic, it takes a long time to warm those people up to the ready to buy from you. Whereas if you collaborate with somebody and they recommend somebody to you, whether it's a referral or it's them promoting something of yours, they're already warmed up because they've had your endorsement.
Yeah.
You're dealing with people who are pre-sold. They're already interested in
Yeah.
what you have to say. It's a very different dynamic.
Well, before we wrap up, I'm just going to point out to the people listening, like to make it super obvious how the complementary, relationship here is for you and me. Like, I know that I have an audience that struggles to expand their audience and collaborate with other people. And you have an audience that are learning how to do that, but they need help systematizing. And like between our two areas, we offer services that help people both directions. And because we already know each other, we can vouch for each other. And people who know us are like, oh, well, then obviously, like Mary's not going to pick somebody who, doesn't know what they're doing. And
Exactly.
vice versa. So like I'm just gonna like try to make that really obvious for anybody who like didn't already pick up on that. I hope you found that super useful. I know that I did. I always learn something every time I talk with Danny. So look to the show notes. Remember to send in a message if you would like to get in on the pilot program so that you can really leverage up your paid collaborations this year. They really, really work, and it's a great way to grow your audience and your business. I am seeing a trend in the business world where things are becoming decentralized, and it's really important that we start getting good at being good humans with each other again. So check that out in the show notes. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, click the thumbs up like so that I can keep content going for you here on this channel. And as always, remember to be sensible, be woo, and most of all, be you. I'll see you next time.